Hi guys, it's Veronica, and today we're going to talk about books. So last year I made a goal for myself to read 12 books in a year or one book per month, and I was able to accomplish that goal. I even made a video about it, so make sure that you check that out in the cards or in the link down below. And so for 2020, I decided to up the challenge and try to read 24 books in a year or 2 books per month. And we're only halfway through 2020 and I've already totally smashed that goal. So I'm feeling really proud of myself and excited, and so I wanted to make a video kind of sharing with you the books that I've been reading so far and what I think of them. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Let's get into these books. So for this video, I have my tablet here with me with some notes because it's a lot of books and I wanted to make sure I covered everything in orderly fashion. And instead of going through the books chronologically, in the order that I read them, I kind of grouped them into categories, and I just think it'll make this video a little bit more streamlined and faster. So that's what we're gonna do. To get started, I've read 29 books in the first half of 2020. 12 of them were nonfiction and 17 were fiction. So I'm going to start off with the nonfiction. 2020 was a new decade. It was like new year, new me, but like more. So I was really into self-help. So I read a lot of self-help books. And the first 2 books I want to talk about are The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo, which I have right here. And I also read The Life-Changing Manga of Tidying Up, which is the manga version of the original book. So these are books that I've read before, and I've read them a few times before actually. I just really love the KonMari method. I think it's really effective. I really like all of the philosophy and the methods behind it, and I use a lot of the strategies in my daily life. So I like to reread it every once in a while just to kind of refresh my memory. If you are curious about the KonMari method but don't know how to get into it, I would really recommend reading the manga because you get to see it as a story. There's a main character and the illustrations are very cute, and you get to see the transformation of the space, the emotional journey that the character goes through, which is real. You do go through that. And also you get to see a lot of the technical folding because it is confusing when you read it in the book at first. So it's nice to see it visualized. Next, I read 5 books by Terry Savelle Foy. If you don't know who she is, she's kind of like a Christian motivational speaker, which I didn't know that at first when I found out about her because, I'm not a Christian and I'm not really interested in that. But I am interested in stuff like self-discipline, willpower, motivation, building habits, setting goals, routines, that kind of thing. And she talks a lot about that on her YouTube channel, which is how I found out about her. And then I found out she wrote all these books. And all of these books are available on Kindle Unlimited, which I was already a subscriber to. So I decided to read a bunch of her books. So I read Pep Talk, which is about positive affirmations. Then I read To Declutter Your Way to Success, which is a book about decluttering. And that one was not really my thing. I'm such a KonMari fan that it just I didn't need it. Then I read 5 Things Successful People Do Before 8 a.m., which I actually really loved. There's a lot of great tips about creating a morning routine, and she gives a lot of, convincing reasons as to why these 5 particular habits are the most beneficial. And I got a lot out of this book. I took a lot of notes, and I kind of want to reread it actually. Then I read a book called Imagine Big, which is about, how to start dreaming again. If you feel like you're kind of stuck where you are in life and it's not going to get any better. That one was okay for me. I think the routine book was the best. And then I also read Dream It, Pin It, Live It, which is a book about making vision boards. So very practical. These books all have kind of a Christian point of view. There's a lot of scripture. It doesn't really apply to my life, so I definitely skimmed over those parts, but in general, it's very positive and motivational. And then I have a few more self-help books to talk about. The first one is It's Not About You by Tom Rath, and this was an Amazon exclusive. Very, very short actually. And this one was about how in order to live a fulfilling life, you have to focus on others rather than your own happiness, which I kind of feel like is a given. I was hoping that the author would give a little bit more advice on to how to like achieve this state of, selfless happiness, but it was just kind of saying like how you need to do it, but like didn't give you instructions on how to do it. So that was kind of for me. Next, I read The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and I was actually really disappointed by this book because so many people on YouTube especially kind of just rave about how great this book is and how it like totally transformed their morning routines, and I just didn't feel that when I read this book. Maybe because I already had the great experience with Terry Savelle Foy's book about morning routines that I didn't really feel like I gained anything more out of The Miracle Morning. And I also felt like Hal Elrod's like explanations of his morning routine were just kind of like shallow and flimsy. Like I wanted more, I guess, more anecdotes, more examples, and he didn't really give that. Another thing that really turned me off about this book is that the author was in an MLM and still seems to be a proponent for MLMs, which I do not abide by. If you go into the Kindle store, you can see that he has Miracle Morning, like versions of the Miracle Morning for different audiences. There's the Miracle Morning for teachers, Miracle Morning for real estate agents, Miracle Morning for students, and all kinds of other audiences. And there's even one for network marketers, direct sales, which AKA that means MLMs. So it kind of grosses me out that he is still supporting that. And so yeah, this book was not it for me. The last like self-help book that I read was Grit and Grace by Tim McGraw, the country singer. And I just was very pleasantly surprised by this book. This is a book about fitness. I listened to it as an audiobook, which was probably a mistake because there are workouts included in the book which do not translate to audio at all. But the chapters in the front of the book that talk about, again, motivation, self-discipline, willpower, setting yourself up for success, building habits, all of that stuff I thought was great. And that was another book that I found myself taking notes on and kind of wanting to reread it because I thought there was a lot of valuable information in there. The last two nonfiction books that I read were memoirs, and I'll start off by talking about Monumental by Wes Bellamy. And I ended up giving this book a really bad review, and I feel kind of bad about it. This book is about the riots in Charlottesville that happened a few years ago, with the white supremacists that came holding tiki torches because they didn't want to get rid of a Confederate statue or whatever stupidness. So the author of this book, he was working in local government at the time in Charlottesville. So it's about the events that kind of led up to this and then the aftermath. And yeah, I was really, really disappointed because while this is a super important topic, first of all, the author, while he was very involved in everything, I was expecting, based on the description when I downloaded it, that he had like a first-hand account of what was going on, but I don't think he was there in the vicinity when everything was happening. So that was not included in the book, obviously, because he wasn't there to witness it. And then the other thing was that, okay, so this book was available on Kindle Unlimited, and there are many talented authors that self-publish through Kindle, but this book desperately, desperately, desperately needed an editor. There were so many typos, misspellings, incorrect grammar, run-on sentences, recycled turns of phrase over and over and over again. It was very difficult to read. It really ruined the reading experience for me, which is such a shame because, like I said, this is an important topic. And the other memoir that I read was Over the Top by Jonathan Van Ness. And I listened to this one on audiobook, which made it a really fun experience. But I still have to say that this one was kind of so-so for me because it's supposed to be, I think the subtitle is like a raw journey to self-love. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. So he talks a lot about all the difficult things that he goes through in his young adult life, you know, drug use and sex addiction, and then finding out that he has HIV. And then it ends by him being part of the Fab Five on Queer Eye. But in between those 2 points of his life, he didn't really explain how he went from like his worst point to his best point in life. It just kind of was like, well, I was addicted to sex and then I auditioned for Queer Eye and my life has changed. So I kind of missed the transformative part of the story. So maybe I wasn't paying attention when I was listening. So let me know if you got a different impression. I was really surprised that I didn't feel any like transformation in there, which I'm sure he did. So yeah, I guess I just kind of missed it in the book. So now let's talk about fiction books. And let me check my stats here. So I read 17 fiction books, and that broke down into 6 graphic novels, 6 cozy mysteries, 1 classic, 1 sci-fi, and 3 fantasy books. So let's start with the graphic novels. I read the entire Lock and Key series by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. Well, I initially decided to read these books because I saw that Netflix was coming out with a TV series and I wanted to read the graphic novels before watching the show. So I started reading them, and at the same time my sister was watching the TV show and she said it was kind of like whimsical, magical, mysterious. And meanwhile, I'm reading these graphic novels and it is not that. This story is really dark. So if you don't know anything about this series, it's about a family that moves into this house that has all of these keys that kind of grant them some special powers. Some of them are more harmless than others, and some of them are really dangerous. Hell breaks loose, basically. There should probably be trigger warnings on all of the books in this series. Yeah, it was very creepy also. I got nightmares from this, and I was staying up late thinking about it, sweating when I'm reading it. So it was really intense, but overall it was really good. So yeah, if you're a tough cookie, I would totally recommend these books. If you're more sensitive, I would definitely be careful. Like I said, there's a lot of dark and sensitive topics, and I would look up trigger warnings for this just to be safe. So next I want to talk about the cozy mysteries that I read, which this is a totally new genre for me. I didn't know that this existed, or if I did, I didn't know that this is what it was called. If you don't know anything about cozies, a cozy mystery is exactly what it says. It's a mystery, but it's cozy. So these books are always about a murder that happens in a small town, and the main protagonist is usually a woman who works in some kind of quirky shop in town, maybe a bookshop or a cafe or that kind of thing. And she has a natural sleuthing ability, and she decides to start following the clues and talking to all the quirky members of the town that she lives in. And she also possibly gets into some kind of romantic relationship with like the detective or the sheriff or something like that. And they always wrap up really neatly. There's no gore, there's no violence, there's no cursing, there's no sex scenes. It's really tame. It's basically like a Hallmark movie, but a book. Yeah. I feel like in 2020, with all the craziness, this genre is exactly what we all need. Something that is very relaxing and cozy and a perfect escape from reality. So I read the first 4 books in the Pelican Cove series by Lena Clover, and I'm really loving this series. I already finished the 5th one, but I'm not including it in this video because that was in the second half of 2020 technically, and I'm gonna keep reading that series until the end because I'm just really loving it. That one takes place in like an East Coast beachside town, and the main protagonist, she lives with her aunt and works at the local cafe. And yeah, it's very cozy. And I also read the first book in the Paradale Cafe series by Agatha Frost, and that one I also really enjoyed, but I decided not to continue that series right now while I'm reading the other one because I don't want to get confused. And I read one more cozy by Elizabeth Hunter called Suddenly Psychic, and I'm not even sure if this technically counts as a cozy mystery because it definitely had a different vibe from the others that I read, but it was, you know, a female protagonist in a small town solving a murder, and it wasn't scary, but the kind of fun aspect of this book is that the main character and her friends get into this car accident, and in the aftermath of the car accident, they realize that they all have developed these psychic powers, and so they use their powers to try to solve the mystery of the murder in their small town. So that was a really fun twist, and I'm curious to read more by that author. Okay, we're getting close to the end, so hang in there. Next, let's talk about all of the other kind of traditional fiction that I read. I read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. That was actually a reread for me, but this time was a totally different experience because I listened to an audiobook, a fan-made audiobook on YouTube by Blue Facts, I want to say. I will leave a link to that playlist in the description. The production value was insane, like mind-blowing. He does the different characters' voices like to a T. There's sound effects, there's background music, it just has ambiance, and oh my god, it was so amazing. What a great experience. Oh my gosh. Next, the one classic that I read was The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Oh, which I have right here. It's the skinniest book that I had on my shelf of classics, so that's why I went for this one. And this one is about an old man who's a fisherman, and he goes out to sea and he tries to catch this really huge fish, and it ends up being this terrible, laborious, painful journey for him. And I wasn't into this story at first because I don't know anything about fishing. I just could not relate. But as I continued through the story, it was really just heartbreaking. I already knew how it was going to end because it's a famous story, but I found myself like wishing and hoping that things would turn out better, and they never do. So that's powerful writing in my opinion. Next, I read two fairy tale retellings by Serena Valentino. The first one was Fairest of All, which is a Snow White retelling, and then The Beast Within, which is Beauty and the Beast. And they are part of a series. It's something to do with these really creepy witch sisters that show up in these stories and start affecting the fates of all of these, you know, beloved Disney characters. And I am definitely intrigued by them, and I want to continue the series, but only the first two were available in Kindle Unlimited, so I did not continue. But I really loved, I loved the Snow White one. That one was really well done. The Beauty and the Beast one was kind of blah, but I still want to know what happens next. And the last book I'm going to talk about is The Beyonders by Joshua Lott. Okay. So Joshua is actually my friend. He used to be an English teacher here in Korea with me. We came at the same time, and he wrote a book during his quarantine, which is amazing and awesome. And I was nervous to read it because, you know, it's always like iffy to read a book that your friend wrote because, like, what if you hate it and you don't know what to say to them? But I am so relieved. It was really good. This was a first contact novel, so a story about meeting aliens for the first time, and it was really suspenseful. I was really on the edge of my seat the whole time, and it was so fun. It was such a fun read, and I'm so glad that I read it, and I'm so proud of him. So I hope you guys decide to check out his book because yeah, support your friends. I guess technically I read one more book, and now that I'm thinking of it, because I listened to Pride and Prejudice as an audiobook because Jen Campbell, she's a booktuber, love her, she decided to, you know, as a treat during quarantine, to record the entire book over Instagram Live And she does an amazing job. She also does voices and stuff, and it was awesome. I had a great time listening to her, but I don't know why I didn't count it as one of my books. I just remembered. I will also leave that as a link down below. So that's everything that I read in the first half of 2020. I'm so mind blown, impressed with myself that I read 29/30 books in 6 months. I know for some people that's like 1 month of reading, but for me, this is major. So let me enjoy it. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider liking and subscribing. I would really appreciate it. So until next time, I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe. See you in the next one. Bye.